What's up guys, Lifting here, and today we're doing something a little different. I have invited Hedgie to join me on Skype, and we're gonna talk about the new skill tree that has just been released. We're gonna talk about some of the changes, how it's going to influence the game, and just our general feelings about it. And Hedgie, could you go introduce yourself?
Sure. What's up guys, it's Hegemony. I'm a YouTube content creator, also a partner Twitch streamer. My passion is with Path of Exile. My main focus is making builds, end game builds, and a lot of the high level dueling PvP action. If you want to check out my content, it's Hegemony Po, that's my YouTube channel, and twitch.tv/HegemonyTV.
Cool. And I would suggest you guys do that. I watch Hegemony stream all the time. It's very informative. So if you want to learn something or if you want to be entertained, go check that out. So Hedgie, we're taking a look at the new skill tree. And let me just ask you quickly, what's your first impressions when you see that? What was your first immediate thought?
Well, I've had the opportunity of seeing various different stages on alpha, and now that it's finally released, it's nice to be able to talk about some of the big time changes. And I think the most notable one is the overall block nerf.
Yeah.
Both in all over the tree, just the changes in the shift. I found, between my builds that I had on PTR or Alpha, it was probably like a 25 to 30% block percentage reduction on most of my builds. So
yeah, that's pretty
huge.
big.
I think because of this, the meta is actually going to shift. And I have a feeling or an inkling that Chris is like, oh, you want to run those sweet crit builds? And, while people are so comfortable with their high block chances and good mitigation, or just outright, throwing it out the window, that they're actually going to feel, and the game is going to be overall harder because their tankiness and the comfort level has gone down, or has just changed. Another also big feature, I feel like, is the Illuminati triangle on the left-hand side of the Templar.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah, that is such an efficient wheel, or triangle, but the penetration and celestial punishment, the 5% chance to freeze, shock, and ignite, the 30% increased damage against frozen, shocked, ignited enemies. It's like a built-in taming on the tree.
Yeah, that's pretty big.
Yeah, unlike the taming, it gives you 5% damage per status element. This one gives you 30% damage increase for one or any of them.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and basically this would stack with shock stacked, the shock effect already. So we can actually with the shock effect, we could see like 80% increased damage. That's pretty big.
Right, and it's all damage. It's physical, chaos. I mean, like anything.
Yeah,
you get
that's
a status element up, and you're up. I mean, you also have the help of Elementalist, so you don't even need to have crit. So Elementalist gives you 12% all res, 10% elemental damage, 5% chance to freeze, shock, and ignite. So you have 10% without critting to apply a status ailment, pretty much with like any particular build.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I was theory crafting an arc build. The amount of shock you can gain with that kind of build is actually pretty easy to obtain right now. Even if you don't go crit or anything, like just pure shock. Also the penetration, the damage elemental penetration, we're seeing a lot more of that with this new skill tree. We're also seeing buffs to the what's it called? It's the Heart of Flame, the Heart of Thunder, and Heart of Ice. Why do you think that is? Why are they focused on this?
Well, I mean, I feel like the game will get to a point where you'll just have so much damage and you'll feel so shaky on reflect that it's kind of like those things where they line up all these elemental tools, and it's like the monkey, tapping the cupcake. How many times are you gonna hit that button, and how far are you gonna go until it's like it ends up in your death, your demise? So I think GGG wants to make you balance your damage. They're giving you awesome opportunities to get a lot of great elemental damage. And the penetration really scares me because there's not any compensation with like max res. Everything is still the same. You can only get one, and you have to travel like so far to get them.
When we talk, let's talk about block again. Do you feel like the biggest nerf, does that come from the nerfed notables, skill notes, or is it that now when you're using acrobatics, you will get that 30% less block chance. What's the big thing here?
Well, I felt like with acrobatics, if you did go acrobatics attack base, that wasn't like an archer, you are usually in a PvP sense. I haven't seen that many PvEers go like massive block with acro.
Yeah.
But the biggest change, well, definitely in the PvP meta, that balance was definitely warranted. You just pretty much get to the point where you're like unhittable.
Yeah.
So that 30% less is a much better balance, and it makes more sense because just spending 5 nodes and getting that much avoidance plus on top of all the block nodes that it was next to, like deflection. There used to be that wall of thorns wheel that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
And then the whole ranger tree with the block nodes got nerfed pretty substantially.
Yeah, definitely.
Some things that are worth mentioning is a lot of the block nodes turn into defenses, like increased defenses from shields.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So maybe we're going to see a trend where shield prices are going to be much more higher valued when you get that high evasion or high armor, because all these increases to shields are going to put more pressure on more quality items, hopefully steering away from like the really good Wrath Pith. I mean, Wrath Pith just offers you that spell block, but now that it's not so potent, maybe people will go into more ES and just really stretch that ES pool with a really good titanium spell crit, all those kinds of things. But definitely very weary with the elemental reflect, and honestly it's kind of unfair that there are some tools that favor fire. I mean,
yeah, definitely. I feel the same way. It's so much easier to deal with reflect damage from fire, Arctic armor, purity of fire. Well, you obviously have the purities for the other elements, but it's so much easier to deal with Arctic armor.
Yeah, barbarism is so easily available, and high-powered Arctic armors, you can push a lot of the reflect off the table. But what do Cold and Lightning have? I feel like the only option is to go like mind over matter, because at least your mana will help mitigate some of that reflect back.
Yeah, that's a good point. I've had a few troubles in the past while theory crafting these builds, because I really didn't know how am I going to deal with this reflect damage, especially if going crit. So I would like to see some perhaps some equivalents to Arctic armor just for lightning and cold, but
right, it would definitely have to be unique. I mean, they couldn't just make a fire or lightning and cold version. The thing people may end up trying to do is cold to fire.
Yeah, that's true.
That reduces your effectiveness to your freezing duration, or you could go avatar fire, but then it's like, why not just do a fire skill?
Yeah, true.
So yeah, that's one of the biggest balancing acts you're gonna have to do. I think Saphil's frame is gonna be super popular. But also make you way more susceptible to attacks. So you'll need something else to compensate, or you'll have to have what's it called, a Rumi's concoction. Definitely handy.
Oh yeah, Rumi's concoction must be so much more valuable after this. The amount of block that it will provide. Do you think we're gonna see a lot of nerfs to those items that already provide that, extra block? Do you think that's gonna happen?
No, I don't think so, because GGG, it seems like they want to tend to reward the reactiveness, or actually pressing buttons instead of automation. And that was the biggest problem with block, is it allowed for too much overall tankiness, and you didn't have to really do anything. You just had it on your gear. So if you have to press something, I think they'll be more inclined to keep it strong. Same thing with potions. Like, they don't mind buffing flasks when you reactively take.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, we've definitely seen that with the few last updates, how the flask powers have been increased. What do you think about the if we go up to the witch tree? We have Mind Barrier. Mind Barrier has been nerfed with. Well, I guess you can reach it within 3 skill points now, whereas you would have to go for 4 skill points before. I think they removed one of the or 2+2 addition. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What do you feel about spell block? Is that that's going to be a lot harder to get up now as well?
It's still going to be, I think, necessary. I mean, especially if you're going to go caster build, you need all the help you can get. I would definitely think watering down your DPS through like GMP is probably going to be in your favor. Like try to pick skills that shotgun or don't have super high, payloads.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it's going to be a lot harder to ice spear without any kind of conversions. And what else is there? Arctic breath, definitely. I think freeze pulse is probably going down on my list of things that I want to do.
Yeah, definitely.
Probably stick with fire and Arctic armor. That just seems like the overall best option.
Yeah, it really does. And that ignite effect is, well, it's just nice, if that's what you're going for. I had a few people telling me that I would definitely kill myself with Flame Blast in the 1 week race. But as we said before, with Arctic armor and Purity of Fire, it's even Flame Blast, a charged Flame Blast, you can deal with that.
Yeah, it's manageable, but easily.
Yeah, definitely.
That's without a Wrath Pit too. I just add the Wrath Pit and it's like really, really smooth sailing.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, Hedgie, we're seeing these nerfs to the block nodes. Do you feel like, or do you think it's because we're seeing these new melee reactive skill gems? Do you feel like we're going to see something that maybe increases block chains with those skills, like Tempest Shield, for instance?
I'm not sure. I mean, I think it's gonna have to be really rewarding. I actually haven't seen any of these counterattack gems, but just hearing about it, and I would think it would have to have some kind of modifier to make it do more damage, maybe even a multiplier to incentivize, like when you actually do block, that you get some kind of boost, maybe, or some kind of extra modification, maybe like 50% of the damage that you counterattack with you heal, or I don't know.
Yeah, okay, I see. I'm definitely looking forward to that. I have a hard time imagining what's going to happen with these new skills and how they're going to affect both damage and defensive capabilities. But it's pretty cool that they're adding in these, which is based on shield. At least that's what I believe. They are based on your shield block chains and that kind of stuff. But obviously we don't know yet. I also want to talk to you about the new starting area for the Templar. What was your first initial impressions when you saw that area?
Well, when I first saw it in alpha, I was really, I was looking at it and I was really underwhelmed. And I'm even to this day, I really don't feel like they're fixing the role. Mainly because the top side, I think the top side is by far the weakest. The 10-10-10 and the 10-10-10 spells. Yeah. With the 12 LE and the 14 LE. I don't feel like Templar is ever going to be a really top tier competitive melee. They're still okay in the realm of spells. Anything that goes Eldritch Battery, I think that it's still fine because the bottom lane is probably the most viable one, where it's the 20 mana regen, 4 life regen per second. Yeah. And the 2 life and mana nodes. That's probably the best highway. I would try to completely avoid the 3 melee nodes or 3 spell damage nodes. Maybe if I had extra points, I would go elemental damage and maybe up to the 12. Yeah. But I want to talk about the Templar left side. Like past that, it's just really, really, really good. With almost every build that I've made, I've been able to utilize a really efficient pathway. Whether we're talking AoE,
bottom or top now of the Templar tree.
Oh, we're talking just about the mid to left side. I'm talking about like starting from Retribution and Sanctity and then going left. Everything over there is just amazing. Very, very efficient. Any class can pass through it. I mean, getting there is very, very simple. But overall, Elementalist is such a strong node. Going into the Illuminati wheel, whether you go life or ES, it's so viable. Yeah, definitely. Then you have Light of Divinity, super strong. Retribution.
Yeah, and Light of Divinity seems so good. So good. Yeah. I'm a big fan of that. For any witch build I made, I pretty much went over here.
And then we have Righteous Decree, which is unique because it's got a lot of increased max mana and reduction.
Which one is that again?
It's right to the left of Sanctity. It says 6% reduced, and then 22 increased mana and 6% reduced, coupled with the Marauder reductions and the life wheel unrelenting, which is like southwest of Templar.
Yeah,
that's a lot of reduction. So we might be able to run Cyclone on mana. It might not just be limited to a blood magic. Those are
that was actually my first thought as well, because there's so much reduced mana cost of skills in this area. There's also Dynamo with just above the Iron Life Wheel,
right,
which will give that 10% maximum mana and 6% reduced mana cost of skills. You can definitely some of the skills that you barely could run before will definitely now you'll be able to run those with mana instead. The question is, of course, if it's worth spending the passive points on, but still, it's pretty interesting.
I think if you go crit, if you have some kind of crit and don't go RT, I think it definitely is because some of the precision nodes and versatility, those kind of hybrid that give you accuracy.
Yeah.
Those will definitely help. If you can manage to not go RT, I think maybe it's definitely worth trying. We'll have to test it out to see. I mean,
definitely.
This is all just preliminary theory craft.
But you've theory crafted a few builds. I saw you did that on the stream right now, and you're a pretty big fan overall of, except for the absolute starting area of the Templar. You like most of the Templar area besides that, right? The new Templar area.
Yeah, I like the left side a lot. Insanely a lot. It's like I find very little reason to start Templar unless I'm going Eldritch Battery.
I was tinkering with a Summon Raging Spirits build, and I kind of felt that the Templar could work for that, because we if you of course go with the life and mana regen. I felt that was okay, but other than that, I of course need to do a lot more builds as well. But I feel that there's rarely a reason to start out as the Templar if you can start out with the Witch instead, for instance. And if you're going crit, any crit build would of course be Shadow or Witch in most cases for casters. So let me ask you about the Duelist tree as well. I would like to know your opinion about that. We're going to talk about the Marauder tree as well, but I would like to ask about the Duelist tree first. What was your first impressions about that?
I found the Duelist tree was a lot like the Templar tree, where it was really, really efficient to go through it horizontally, but the moving up and down vertically was horrendous. Even starting as a Duelist, I found myself just picking up the first two starting nodes and then going out through the strength or the dex side, just because the 3% attack speeds are really, really unappealing, and the 10% physical damage with attacks. It's 4 points to go through that small wheel is a big investment. There's no life on it anymore. But I definitely feel going vertically is pretty painful in the Duelist. So much easier to pass through. I do like the Fury Bolts change, and there's even a node after Fury Bolts. It's called projectile damage and speed, which gives you 10-6. So that's something new. Getting out, going right is pretty easy. Art of the Gladiator is probably one of my new favorite nodes.
I felt the same way.
You don't have to go through that semicircle. What was that? Leather and steel, I think. That's just like
there was
thing.
There was this. It's basically been merged with the other notable from before. I can't remember the name, which also gave 12% increased attack speed and some dexterity, I believe. It's not there anymore.
Acceleration or what?
Yeah, it's probably acceleration. Yeah. I don't think it's there anymore, is it?
Yeah, well, it got hybridized into Art of the Gladiator.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's like they combine acceleration and leather and steel into that one node. But I found Executioner pretty easy to manage to get, but then after that, it's like, where do you go? You can go towards Defiance, and then you got to spend a bunch of other nodes just to get out.
Yeah, I felt the same way when I was trying to make a few builds around this. It just it doesn't feel good. It feels like you're spending a lot of skill points on subpar skill nodes. It's not very satisfying to pick up. Why do you think that is? what's the reasoning behind this design? Would you like to share your opinion on this?
I'm sure it's probably got something to do with like LLD and racing at the very early scene. So this might be how they adjust the numbers, but high-end builds, I feel like still passing through Duelist is still very, very good, but starting it out as it, there are other better options. Marauder is pretty good. So survivability, and we're talking in like the, you want to make a build that's hardcore viable. Like, you want to make sure you cover your defenses as well as, get efficient offense where you can get it.
Yeah.
But the 2-pointers that all extend from Master to the Arena, very, very accessible. 2-pointers of Art of Gladiator. It's like they want the Duelist to start slow, then get really good, and then get slow again.
I could see that. I could see that. Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas before in the early meta of Duelist, you start really fast, you stay fast, and then you have a long travel after that.
Yeah. That's actually a really good point, because I was just about to say, compared to the old tree, the new skill tree seems very lackluster early on, because before we had these really nice life nodes, we had easy access to Master of Arena, we had acceleration as well, and it was very easy to get Executioner, but when you had to go out, it kind of sucked. We also had some really nice, we had water dancing for the one-handed builds, and of course if we want to go dual wield, we had Dervish. Has Dervish been nerfed as well? I'm looking at the old one right now. Yeah, it's been nerfed pretty hard.
Yeah, pretty hard. It used to be really, viable to get out through Dervish or the one-handed wheel.
Yeah.
And then usually people poked out to get Testudo.
Yeah.
That was really good. Now, I mean, Testudo is now all the way at the bottom.
Yeah, and it seems like it was before it had this 6% additional chance to block with shields. Now it's 3%.
Yeah.
With a 60% increased block recovery. It's gonna be with the new skill gems. Maybe we're gonna see some pretty interesting stuff with the block recovery, but.
Yeah, well, we also could look at some pretty interesting stuff, maybe with retaliation, with a reactive gem.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, I feel like it's going to be pretty damn hard to even just get a successful block, and I don't know if I'm ready to build around it unless those gems, do something really, really significant and consistent, or have some kind of extra consistency about it.
Yeah, exactly. What do you think people are going to do now that block seems to be nerfed? At least we don't know, obviously, because there's stuff that can happen with the new skill gems. But what do you think people are going to do? Are they just going to pump up their armor rating or their evasion, or how are they going to deal with this?
I feel like acrobatics and Ondars, maybe a influx of projectile rangers and shadows.
Oh yeah.
Are going to be very, very popular because that's still super strong.
Yeah,
that
definitely.
Combination with evasion and dodge and spell dodge, probably much more stronger than. I mean, you get Atsiri boots and you're almost like set on defenses. With a decent evasion chest or a lightning coil. Yeah. Lightning coil is definitely going to be even more sought out.
Yeah, that's
Lightning
for sure.
coil and Cloak of Defiance, I think, are, if anything, mitigation that's consistent is going to be more popular. I know they really trying to get away from the popularity of those two items, but I don't know. I feel like
didn't work.
Yeah, I think they're just backfired with this, but it's a better PvP balance for sure.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know anything about that. I have no idea how that's gonna be yet. I'm only looking at this from a PvE perspective at the moment. But I definitely feel my first impression when I saw all this was I'm gonna go bow. I'm gonna go bow because I'm not. Then I don't even have to worry about the block nerfs. We're getting new bow skills. We're getting those bow travel skills or movement skills, the decoy bow skill and that kind of stuff. It just seems like bows are really strong at the moment, especially if you're using tornado shot, and it just seems like they got even stronger compared to how some of the other skills are going, or how the other builds are going to feel.
Well, look at it this way. I mean, while other other builds become weaker, it indirectly makes other builds more appealing.
Yeah, exactly.
They didn't really change that much. Maybe they have more tools now, but they don't have to adjust the other stuff. They just bring other stuff down that are too strong.
Yeah, exactly.
If there's ever a time to go bow, it's probably this next coming league.
Yeah, definitely. So do you feel like this was warranted?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think the game just it got a little too easy.
Okay. Defensive wise or damage wise?
Defensive wise.
Okay.
And the damage, I mean, they gave you a lot of tools. The Illuminati wheel and the easy passes through Templar and Duelist. Those are really quality of life improvements for a lot of builds. They brought down stuff that was just sky high, like Shadow Crit, and they're making a lot more, headway by just like nerfing the nodes 1% each on those attack speed Shadow nodes. That's definitely warranted. Their Shadow was just so potent and strong.
Yeah, it's like this. I think I heard you saying this on stream, but it's like this square of awesome notables we have in the middle. We have trickery, coordination, quickness, and cold-hearted calculation, and in between of that, there's just godly stuff. So it's pretty sick.
There's so many nodes that just make skills good. I mean, just even sniper, the projectile, coordination, and quickness. Like, that is such a popular, and not to mention the most recent things that's like been OP for races, the mana gain on kill and the life gain on kill from Blood Siphon and Soul Siphon, making like flasking pretty jokes.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
I would like to see this game definitely shift into more reactive stuff. People actually take damage and pot. Potting is like such a skill that needs to happen more and less.
I feel the same way.
Insta leeching, as long as you're attacking, you're full. Things like that.
Yeah, it definitely makes the game more fun as well.
I think so too.
And one of the critiques of Path of Exile is sometimes, at least from somebody looking from the outside, is that this game seems to be like right-clicking and that's it for some people. If we can make, or if the developers can make this game, more reactive, and I think that's what's going to happen, with the new bow movement skills as well, the reactive melee skills. It's definitely, it's going to feel like more actiony in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
And
but I'm kind of scared that the reactive skills might be just kind of feel like a cast when damage taken or a cast when stunned type thing.
Okay.
So, I mean...
Oh, yeah. In that regard, it would just have the opposite effect, actually.
Yeah, more automation.
Yeah. Oh, I actually had the impression that it would be like overpower from World of Warcraft, for instance.
Oh, so, like enable...
Yeah, exactly. So when you block, for instance, or if you parry, you would...
I would love that.
Open up that. Yeah, that would be pretty cool. I would love to see that.
Yeah, that's currently not coded in the game. Like having a prerequisite happen before it enables ability. I mean, all they have right now are like cooldowns.
Okay, so it's simply not in the game engine.
Well, I mean, it could be. I don't know. I haven't seen anything, but
that's true. That's true.
They would definitely take some coding to make something like that because it doesn't exist in the current state.
Okay. I would also like to ask you about staves. You're like the staff master, Hedgie. you made Hegemony's Era probably one of the absolute most powerful...
Oh, come on. No, we don't need a nerf now. It's a decent staff, let's just say that.
Yeah, okay, let's put it like that then. What would you think about the new staff changes?
Man, I really like it. Even though Whirling Barrier got nerfed, the overall percentages, like if you look at it, 10% chance to gain a power charge when you block.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, with the leaf sweep and the ground slamming, it's you don't block that much with melee skills because you're knocking them back so much, freezing them, chilling them, that whole feature. But for ranged attacks, for archers, for those little machine gun pea shooters, I think it'll be very, very nice for the continuity. And also the opposite side, 10% chance to gain an endurance charge on a critical strike. That's definitely going to increase, and hopefully people will learn the Immortal Call way.
Yeah, the Immortal Call way. I've seen you do the Immortal Call way for a long time. With the you're self-casting endurance charges, right? That's usually how you go about it.
Yeah, echoing.
Yeah, exactly. And then you have a cast when damage taken set up.
No.
I thought you
self-cast on Mortal Call.
Okay, I actually thought you had a cast when damage taken set up, but you would self-cast the endurance charges so that they were up, and you had a set amount of endurance charges all the time.
Yeah, if you had a cast when damage taken set up, you would actually break the build because you wouldn't be able to volley Mortal Call.
Okay.
When you want, it would just happen at really, really bad times.
Yeah, that could fuck you up.
Yeah. But I think the endurance charge on Critical Strike will help with the continuity. Prior to getting a level 3 enhance, I do run Leap Slam and endurance charge on melee stun.
Okay, yeah.
So that was another way that I was using when I wasn't so geared, or I was in the process of leveling an enhance to make it worthwhile.
Okay, yeah, I see. And just now that we're talking about cast when damage taken, do you think we're gonna see some changes to that? Is it set in stone now? Is it working as it should?
I mean, I'm kind of stickler about cast when damage taken. I mean, I recognize it as being amazing. I use it in a lot of my caster build setups, and I just self cast an echoing cry, and then I have like a 6-second plus immortal call. But it becomes a problem when this game promotes too much automation, so much to where it's like a staple in every build.
Yeah.
And as a design, if everybody is running that setup somehow, some way, with the exception of maybe like the instant leecher, blood magics, shavs, or whatever someone else might be running, but it's so popular, and it's like a necessity, especially in the hardcore leagues, that you have that. It's somewhere in your thing, and it makes it less unique.
Definitely,
it's just more mandatory, it's less diversity. So I definitely hope in the near future that GGG implements some kind of active mitigation, much like Mortal Call. Arctic Breath is kind of, there's definitely a resource element that you need to be cautious on.
Yeah.
Having to check on your mana to make sure it didn't turn off, making the responsibility to turning it on, toggling it just like you would a Blood Rage. Anything that has micromanagement, I think, is a much better design. Having stuff happen all the time automatically, and then you just completely ignoring the thing, I don't think it's very healthy.
No.
So either provide an alternative to cast and damage taken, or make a choice. I mean, I feel I made this suggestion before, but I think that as a two-hander, you should be allowed to have plus 1% max rest per endurance charge. What this would do is it would, help the two-handed builds that can never wear a shield and run like, uber auras or properties, so that they have enough resistances to take down some of the scariest bosses.
Yeah, that's a pretty interesting idea. I like that. That.
And it would give people that want to use that lightning staff, or a what is that? The spell echo, the Pledge of Hands, or Terran Shiver, something a little bit more defense, and it would give the option of somebody, well, I should be kind of rewarded by casting, my endurance charges instead of just dumping them on Immortal Call, like to have that node and then have them go off when you actually want the spell resist over the physical immunity. I think is a much more interesting choice in your gameplay. You're like go into a fight and you're like, well, I want physical immunity, I'm gonna take it. Or this is a different fight, I'd rather have the endurance charges, so I'm gonna keep them. So I think that would put two-handed staff in a better light for both caster and physical based person,
and much more interesting. I mean,
much more interesting. Definitely dynamic gameplay where you're having to make tough decisions, but when you make the correct decision, it's highly in your favor. While at the same time, this would be a keystone, so it wouldn't work with one-handed hands or one-handed weapons. So you'd have to leave that restriction. Otherwise, one-handed builds would just be super tanky with max res.
That would be insane. That would be way too powerful. But let me ask you again. It was you said 1 to plus maximum to all resistance per endurance charge
Right, which is a maximum of 8 if you have the endurance charge on a belt and then the nodes. And it already is, if to get all the endurance charges, it takes, a lot of navigating. So there is a cost of, management of how you spend your talent points. And most likely, if you're a caster, you're probably only going to make 5. But it'll make another interesting choice for when you choose your, your bandits. Right? It's more often than not, there's too many popular choices that's what you do. But it'd be nice, like, I wanted a little bit tankier. I think I'm going to go Staves caster. So I'm going to look forward to getting an extra endurance charge and just rely on Immortal Call or keeping my endurance charges for more max res to deal with Reflect and things like that.
Yeah. Now it's if this is gonna happen, this is when Comb signs the rings are going to skyrocket in price. That +1 they can get.
They're so costly.
Yeah. I think I have and probably have 50 of those in my stash or something like that. I just don't want to throw them out.
Yeah, desired items like corrupted items with endurance charge. Those would be also
definitely
sought out for, and it would change the market too.
Definitely
wouldn't destroy the previous one, but make it much more desirable to have.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to ask you another thing, Hedgie, and I'm asking you a lot of questions. I'm happy to have you here, man. Thank you again.
Oh yeah, this is fun, man. I don't mind it at all.
I'm glad to hear that, man. The thing I want to ask you about is ambidexterity. Am I pronouncing that correctly, first of all?
Ambidexterity?
Yeah, okay. It gives 20% increased main hand damage and 20% increased offhand attack speed. What do you feel about that? Is this a PvP node or is it a PvE node as well?
I'm not sure, to be honest. Like, when I looked at that, I was super shocked. I was like, wow, that's cool. But every time I look at this, all I can think about is Wings of Entropy. I'm just like,
I can definitely see that.
How does that kind of, it's only a 3-point investment, with Dex nodes to get to that highway. I don't think it's that bad, and I don't know. It could make for some interesting combinations where you want which situation. Maybe you have a really slow offhand, but it's like a stat stick.
Yeah.
And a main hand that's killer. I'm not sure.
But I suppose you would want to have the main hand with the highest amount of damage to scale it as much as possible. And then if you had some kind of unique property, maybe some, I don't even know, elemental effect you would like to have on your offhand. I don't know. I have a hard time wrapping my head around this.
Yeah, well, it says main hand damage, so it's important to note that it could be elemental too.
Oh yeah.
So if you manage to, I don't know, avatar a fire or convert your physical damage into elemental, or the weapon is just elemental based, it would still, increase all of its damage.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
Could even be chaos too. That would work.
Yeah, good point. All right, Hedgie, so before we continue, I know you want to talk about the Culling Strike effect on maces, but first let me just quickly ask you, what do you think about dual wielding with the amount of block reduction it has received as well? Do you think, are we still going to see dual wielding builds, or is it, the league of non-dual wielding we're going to experience for the next few months?
I feel like dual wielding claw is still going to be okay, but staple builds or very popular Wings of Entropy builds that got nerfed to the ground.
Yeah.
Big time. I was trying to plan for a supplement for a Wings of Entropy axe build, and it was just not nearly as appealing as the current tree. Defensively, I was able to get so many. The biggest nerf was the lack of bravado wheel. That got nerfed into the ground. It's now duality.
Yeah.
3%, 8 fizz, 3, 24 fizz. Wings of Entropy got nerfed to the ground, and it's also worth noting, just because with the block nerf, that Sibyl's Paw also received, and some people like to dual wield those, but just not having that much block anymore. It's definitely a big nerf back, but I don't think it's bad because those items are very, very cheap and very effective. They're so effective for what they were doing now. And I think it's just brought down more into reality of, cost versus effect.
Yeah, okay. Good point.
But I think a lot of the dual wielding changes was, like I said, they're trying to balance PvP, and a step in the right direction is to make sure that dual wielding doesn't become more of a defense than, you know, shield builds.
Oh yeah, you're thinking Ungles and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm thinking Ungles. Yeah, things like that would be so insanely powerful if they just left that untouched.
Yeah, definitely. It's like the go-to thing as well. That amount of defense you can get from that.
Doesn't really make sense to have, like, you know, dual wield build have so much better defense than a one with a shield. It doesn't fit in an action RPG.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so let's talk about the calling strike from the maces. We have skull cracking. That's the notable over here, and it gives us 22% increased physical damage with maces and 10% reduced enemy stun threshold. But it also has this unique property that hits that stun enemies have calling strike. What do you think about that?
Well, both that node and Executioner, two-handed melee weapons.
Let me find the Executioner just a sec. It's below, right?
Yeah, it's the one on the bottom where it says increased damage against enemies on low life.
Yeah.
That is going to be really nice for like Herald of Ash builds.
That's actually a pretty cool. That's a good point.
Yeah, it's gonna make a what do you call it? The people that are like, oh, just Prolif and, you know, Herald of Ash and GG, you win.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting choice. Maces did need some love.
Yeah,
especially
definitely.
Two-handed ones, because I mean, you're giving away a lot of defense. Stun locking may become a new thing, but I feel like mace damage potential, especially in groups, is kind of lackluster.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe some interesting new stun lock builds will incentivize people to craft, or, you know, attempt to craft more viable Colossus mallets, or I don't know. Yeah. Maybe there's a new unique with some crit chance on it that makes it really competitive in the crit scene, because you still have, you know, Galvanic Hammer and, you know, some nodes to help you with mace crit. But just having a 5% local crit base, you got a long way to go to make really, you know, crit really efficient.
Yeah, I was trying to make a crit one-handed ground slam build a few weeks back. And while you can do it, it's just so hard to scale that amount of crits. It really, I never really got to the point where I actually felt it was satisfying with the amount of crit that I had. But I guess it's possible if you could use Scepters, of course, and they have a better base crit chance, but you're going to have less damage overall. But I don't know.
Notable Slaughter, that's pretty cool. They got 10% chance to gain Onslaught for axes. I like how they're giving more niche functions for weapons. And I guess the swords would be like the block penetration for PvP, things like that.
Yeah.
Although I don't know if it's absolutely necessary now with the major block nerfs. I'm sure it'll still help, but I also like Bloody Bludgeon. It's the mace node next to Unwavering Stance. Gives you 4% increased area. That's kind of cool. Helps at ground slamming.
I think we had something like that before as well.
Yeah.
It actually gave us increased radius area skills, but it seems like it's about this whole area. It's a pretty weird area in my opinion. The positioning or the pathing is pretty, in my opinion, less efficient than what it was before. There used to be a lot of good two-handed nodes here as well. I kind of feel like, at least when I was trying to make a two-handed build, that it felt less efficient. But it's really cool with the 10% chance to gain Onslaught for 2 seconds on kill.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely tell that this separation was because they wanted to nerf the blood magic, low life, having unwavering blood magic, and then the aura effectiveness nodes, which they clearly made you like work for it to get it. Like look at where they move Champion of the Cause.
Yeah, it sucks.
So that was an attempt to, hey, your blood magic builds, you need to tone down a notch, you know?
Yeah, definitely. All right, Hedgie, so I feel like we've talked about lots of the important changes here. I know you have been theory crafting a lot of builds. You have this whole 120 builds the 130 builds I've seen you do now. Could you explain that?
Yeah, so 120 builds, which is 1.2.0 ready, viable for end game clearing maps. I didn't want to make them. I realize a lot of them go very high in the points, but that's just to give people options if they already have a high level character and they want to try something else. We're giving these free respecs, so it's up to you. Especially everybody's gear is different, so you are free to just trim a few nodes, whatever you feel is necessary. But I mainly make these builds for the community. I do not claim ownership to them. Feel free to go to my channel to find them. Just type in !120 builds if you want the current 1.2.0 tree. And I'm currently working on the 1.3.0, and I have about 50 builds, probably about 75 to 80 more to go.
You got a lot of stuff to do, man. But it seems like, at least from what I experienced, it seems like people were really happy about those 120 builds. It seems like it was a great success and people enjoyed them.
Yeah, I mean, success, and a lot of people come to my channel, and just even when I'm off streaming, I just see, I'm always in my chat, so I can see people coming in and just spamming that 120.
Yeah.
Like all different kinds of people, and they just get the link and leave, which is fine. I mean.
So lastly, Hegi, we're going to stop within too long, but before we do that, I would like to ask, what is your plans for the upcoming 1.3 patch? What are you gonna do? How are you gonna spend your time?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you've been watching the stream, or a lot of my viewers would know that I was planning on going Templar, Flame Blast. Now, with the Templar start the way it is, I think I'm going to steer away from that.
Okay.
It's not horrible, but I think I can do it as a witch just as good too.
That's what you did previously, wasn't it? When you started out, you were actually competitive on the ladder for a good amount of time, right?
Yeah, I died at level 90. It was like day 3 or 4 on 29th of the ladder or something like that. Okay. That VOD is also on my YouTube, but
yeah, you basically got one-shotted by.
Yeah, I got one shot. I ran up to a bone skelly with crit or some damage mods on the map and things like that.
Yeah, I think my favorite death was when you blamed the rower, and then there was the bear that just took off.
I was like, that rower, condemning him. He was completely innocent.
Yeah, exactly. Poor bird.
Shooting the shit.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think I'm going to change gears because I want to explore the whole Illuminati wheel, and I want to maximize my damage, and at the same time I don't want to pay for it. So I think I'm going to start out with a flame blaster, and then transition into a crit trapper, because with so many variables, so many unknowns, I feel, your best defense is moving around, just like working out. It's better just move around,
Yeah, and with traps you have this. People often underestimate traps. Think that people feel like it's a very mobile and slow gameplay, but with traps you're just running around, you're killing stuff so fast, and because of that you have that additional layer of defense. You're never standing still for too long.
It's not your tooltip or your stat sheet, but moving around is a defense in itself.
Yeah, exactly. And you think you're gonna play as the trapper for the remaining of the league if you don't die? Then is that your plan?
Well, no. I plan on doing something more interesting, but as I'm learning it, I feel like it's going to be an excellent farmer.
Okay.
And I'll get the currency to do my next thing, and I'll understand the meta more as I feel, and see the new gems. But definitely, I like to start out with a successful, first build, and I like to earn that currency and get that initial, boost in the ladders to where I can, control a lot of not control, I guess, just make more marketable items and do whatever I want into my next build. But
you can make so much currency at the beginning of a league if you're just one of the first people to start farming piety, dominance, or whatever. Right. Putting those items out there. Yeah, maps, of course. Personally, I haven't really decided what kind of build I'll be doing, but I was considering doing a summon raging spirits, but I also want to try some of the new skill gems, and the new wand skill gem looks pretty interesting. It's probably not going to be my first build, at least, because I want something that I can farm those bosses with and get that currency rolling like you were talking about yourself. But definitely I would recommend to anyone out there, for any new league, start out with a build that you know is solid, so you can get that currency rolling, and then perhaps you can start a second build afterwards with the new currency you have amassed. Is that what you would recommend as well?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it in the big picture, it's a 3-month league.
Yeah, exactly.
And you want to get momentum. And the reason why people tune in and they're like, oh, snooze, Searing Bond or whatever, it's because these, top level players, they know exactly what they need to do to get ahead. And getting ahead is important because it plays a huge advantage, economically and, just your momentum and keeping the ladder seen. So don't force yourself to be edgy. You can do that later when more items appear and more tools are available to you and more variables are figured out. But spend a week, at most, and then you can start your second character after that. I think after a week is a good time to consider doing a second character, depending upon how much fun you're having. Obviously, suck it up. I think suck it up for a week. Do what's good. Don't worry about if someone says, "Oh, you're doing arc," or "Oh, you're doing this." Just ignore that. Searing Bond if you need to. Whatever.
Yeah, exactly. It's an investment. You're basically investing into your future build. So Hegi, before we end, is there anything else you would like to add?
Yeah, I think one thing I would like to say is, while I'm compiling this 130 builds document, I'm noticing half of them are witches. And this is a concern to me because when I was creating a lot of these, starts, I was just like, man, why don't I just go witch? Yeah. Because it's just, you get that sweet mana regen node at the beginning.
Yeah,
it leads out into great things. It's often the best case for CI. You can always get damage later. I mean, defenses are paramount, especially with a block nerf. So, I mean, I'm hoping I'm only halfway done. So I'm hoping the second half has a better representation of class balance. And I mean, we'll see.
All right. So lastly, Hegi, tell us again, where can people find you?
So you can find me live on my stream, twitch.tv/Hegemony TV, or you can find me on my YouTube channel. I do a lot of content. It's youtube.com/hegemonypoe. That is my YouTube channel. Feel free to say hi if you have questions. I'll be glad to take them. My channel is filled with a lot of theory crafting, just real life, talk or whatever. I mean, it's a great hangout. And I love having Lifting Nerd Bro and all other fellow streamers there to shoot the shit.
I can confirm that, guys. There's a lot of fun stuff going on there. Check it out. Anyway, thank you very much for coming on, Hegi. It was a pleasure, and I will of course talk to you pretty soon as well. And to you guys out there, I wish you the best of luck in the new leagues. I hope you guys are as excited as me and Hegi are. Thank you for watching, and bros, do you even nerd?